26.
26 years sober.
Yes.
Yes. So how has
And
that
not only
relationship?
physically sober, but mentally sober, and most of the time spiritually sober. I wish I could say that someone else did, but that wouldn't be the truth. First of all, it starts with the drinking, because sometimes when you think you're sociably drinking, if when you take a drink, you find you don't know the amount you're going to take, or once you drink, you can't stay away from the alcohol. You seem to want to drink again the next Saturday. So I would say alcohol first is the gateway into addiction for most people. Well, for me, anyway. So I started drinking, and when I was, I think, junior high school, and some of it comes from the fact that I was bullied, believe it or not, through high school, and I didn't like the country living so much. I love country living, but I just didn't like the town that I was in. So I felt trapped by some things. So alcohol was a good place for me to escape. So I don't think anyone actually introduced me to um, drugs, but after alcohol will come drugs, even if it's marijuana. Marijuana will lead to other things because we don't drink or use because we like the high or we feel we need to. Once we become addictive, once we realize that we're addicted to drugs or alcohol, we've long been addicted prior to that moment when we realize that alcohol and drugs has taken over our lives. So no one actually introduced me to it, I would say. Probably about 8, 9 years. Yeah, about 8 or 9 years. Yes. Well, it came to a point at one time I can remember that stands out so prevalent in my mind because I'm 26 years sober as of October the 5th. One day at a time, 1 hour at a time, one weekend at a time, one experience at a time. But one time I remember being out in, we call it we call it down in the hole. And I remember walking up and seeing my mother's car come by. And she stopped and she said, "Have you seen my daughter?" Right. Well, she's looking right at me. And I can remember her saying, "This is her picture. If you see her, please tell her that I'm looking for her." And I just said, "Okay, ma'am, no problem." So embarrassing. So I guess you become like, no, I don't guess. I know you become like some kind of mummy, and people may see them out there in the streets today, in the streets of Baltimore, and say, "Oh my gosh, look at him! Look how he looks." But years later, once he gets sober, once he starts to go on the process of seeing what the real problem is, you won't even be able to recognize the man that you saw years prior. You know what I'm saying? Um, so many times my sister, I have a baby sister also here in Baltimore right now, that always had a door open for me, no matter what. I took over her home. It got to a point where I took over her home and I stayed in the basement and we cooked our crack and stuff in the basement and we went out and sold it from with the guy next door. And I remember giving her some money at one time and told her, "Don't give it to me no matter what. You know what I mean? I'm gonna get myself together. I mean it this time." And she said, "Okay, I'm gonna hold it." And I cursed her out and almost want to fight to get that money back. That's not normal, you know. We never had a relationship like that. So I guess it affects them in a way that they feel powerless. They feel like there's nothing they can do. That they just remember the person that I used to be, and they think that they could just kind of mold me back to that person, you know. And sometimes I thought so too. You know, if I get through with this one, it won't happen again. If you get me out of this, Lord, I promise I'm never going to do it again. Only to end up flat on my face, powerless over the fact. You know, so many people out there right now are probably saying the same thing I said. You know, if I get past this, I'm not going to do it again. You know, if I get over this, I won't do this again. Oh my God, I can't believe I went to jail. Oh my God, I can't believe I came to and this nigga was over here. I didn't even know his name. Oh my God, one more time I'm pissing and I'm throwing and I'm rolling off this bar stool. What the hell? I can't go through this no more.
Oh
Well, for
shit.
me, I believe it's divine intervention because sometimes there's a power that works in spite of ourselves. Well, there's a power that works in spite of ourselves anyway, but we start to recognize this power in our lives. And I can remember being in my mother, in my aunt's, my sister's house. Excuse me, my sister's house, and I'm coming up from the basement. And my nephew at that time was 5 years old, and I remember him saying, um, "You're not my aunt. You a crackhead." Because some of the kids in the neighborhoods probably said that to him. You know what I mean? Man, I saw your aunt out there. You know, and he could have said that many, many times. You know, but we learned in the rooms that it said there's a moment of clarity where you really can hear God speaking to you when you think it's not God because of the words that the person is using, but He has to get your attention. And so they got my attention. And I flipped the pages of this 800 number, and I called this number. And anybody know anything about crack cocaine or rock or whatever you want to call it? You get to the point where you can't speak, where your jaws is like, and words cannot come out, and you're paranoid. And but somehow words came out on this telephone, and they said, "Do you have insurance?" And I still kept a job because we want to keep up appearances. We want it to appear that we ain't as bad as those people. If I ever get that bad, I'll stop, you know. And so it came to this 800 number, and they said to me, "Do you have insurance?" I said, "I guess I don't know." And it said, they answered the phone and said, "Hello, Cocaine Anonymous." That stuff was weird. I'm like, but they say cocaine, so it got my attention. And they said, "Well, can you just go get a few clothes for me, please? And we'll have a limousine in front of your yard in about 20 minutes. You're going to fly out to California." And I'm like, uh, huh? Still some ideas. So for me, it was divine intervention. I didn't make a decision one day to just say, "I'm going to stop and this is it. I'm going to go in." That didn't happen that way for me. But the car was there because my nephew came in running again. "Oh, there's a big black car out here for you. I guess you're going to go and do some more crack." One more time, God speaking through my nephew, and I just grabbed some of the dirtiest, cleanest clothes I had, got in the car, and I was off to California. Hmm.
All right. So you went to rehab in Cali. So
Yes,
how long was that for?
I was there 5.5 years in California, Orange County, California. And I'm telling you about this New Beginnings Fellowship Center. But the hospital that I went, I mean, it's so amazing how these things happen for me because the hospital I went into, and we go into an insane asylum because that's what is insanity. It's either repeating the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, or repeating the same thing over and over again, already knowing the result. Okay, so I look at it more as the latter. It's repeating the same thing over and over again, knowing what the result is going to be. Something is wrong with your thinking. A lack in the ability to think straight, obviously. So the insane asylum is just where I should have been. But after I graduated from that hospital, in other words, went through the detox situation, detoxing, and then starting off with talking about what the real problem is, which is not drugs or alcohol, and graduated from that part of the program and went into a recovery home. That hospital closed up. It's as if God opened it up and kept it open until I got there. That's for me. That's for me. Um, But that hospital is no longer there. It's called Orange County Community Hospital. It's no longer there. It was gone a year later. So, and I began to kind of listen